Hello and welcome back. I normally don't start out videos this way, but I just wanted to say thank you for 5,000 subscribers. I'm speechless and I'm humbled by that. A year ago I had 800 subscribers, and that took 4 years for me to get there. And in a year, I now have 5,000 people, over 5,000 people now, hanging out with me. So I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I guess to celebrate, what I'm going to do is something that you guys have been asking for a while, and that is to do a recap review of the 1972 Tales from the Crypt movie. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Again, thank you very much. It's no secret that I absolutely love the Tales from the Crypt 90s TV show, but I have to admit, I've never seen the 1972 movie. So, if like me you've never seen it or just want to relive it, sit back and relax if you dare. You're in for a scare. Our first segment might seem familiar. It's the original version of And All Through the House. On a snowy Christmas Eve in the English countryside, Joanne Clayton, a glamorous woman with a cold, calculating demeanor, sits in her elegantly decorated home. The festive atmosphere is palpable, with holiday music playing softly in the background, and a beautifully adorned Christmas tree standing tall in the corner. Joanne's young daughter, Carol, is upstairs, eagerly awaiting the arrival of Santa Claus, her innocent excitement contrasting sharply with the sinister events about to unfold. Joanne's husband, Richard, is comfortably settled in the living room, engrossed in a newspaper. Unbeknownst to him, Joanne approaches from behind, gripping a heavy fireplace poker. With a swift and brutal motion, she strikes him on the head, killing him instantly. Blood splatters across the newspaper, a stark and gruesome image that marks the beginning of Joanne's meticulously planned crime. She coldly pats down Richard's body, trying to find the keys in his pocket, and opens the family safe, confirming the presence of his life insurance policy, a crucial component of her scheme. Joanne's plan is clear: eliminate her husband to collect the insurance money and start anew with her lover. As Joanne begins the arduous task of disposing of Richard's body, she is interrupted by a radio announcement reporting the escape of a homicidal maniac from a nearby mental institution.
We interrupt this program for a special announcement. A man described as a homicidal maniac has escaped from the hospital for the criminally insane. He is 6'3" tall, 210 pounds, dark eyes, bald, and may be wearing a Santa Claus costume taken from a shop in Berlin.
The man is described as being dressed in a Santa Claus costume and is considered extremely dangerous. Joanne, however, is too preoccupied with her own crime to pay much attention to the warning. Her efforts are interrupted when she notices a figure dressed as Santa Claus lurking outside her home. Panic sets in as she realizes the escaped maniac is at her doorstep. She attempts to call the police but hesitates, knowing that involving them would expose her own crime. Her predicament becomes increasingly dire as the maniac, wielding an axe, begins to assault the house, attempting to gain entry. Joanne manages to fend him off temporarily, using the same fireplace poker she used to kill her husband, considering the possibility of framing him for Richard's murder, intending to make it appear as though the maniac killed him. Joanne's terror intensifies as she realizes her daughter is in imminent danger.
Carol? Carol? Carol, where are you? Carol? Carol?
Joanne finds her daughter downstairs, ringing a bell next to an open window, exclaiming with glee that she let him in. Unlike the ambiguity of the TV version, we're shown Joanne's brutal fate.
He's here, Mommy. I let him in. It's Santa.
If this story seems familiar, it is because it was remade as the second episode of the 1989 Tales from the Crypt television series. Directed by Robert Zemeckis, this adaptation had a darker and more humorous tone. It was actually one of the first episodes I covered in my first ever video on the Tales from the Crypt TV series. The opening credit sequence was shot at Highgate Cemetery, adding an authentic gothic atmosphere to the film's introduction. The story of All Through the House originated in the Vault of Horror number 35, published by EC Comics in early 1954. It was written and illustrated by Johnny Craig. Both adaptations remain faithful to the original comics plot, each adding unique stylistic elements that reflect their respective mediums and eras. Our second story is hauntingly titled Reflection of Death. Carl Maitland, a middle-aged businessman, finds himself ensnared in the throes of a clandestine affair with his secretary, Susan Blake. Disillusioned with his domestic life, Carl decides to abandon his wife and 2 young children under the guise of a business trip. He meticulously plans his departure, ensuring that his family remains oblivious to his true intentions. As he bids a seemingly heartfelt farewell to his unsuspecting family, Carl is consumed by a mix of guilt and anticipation for the new life he envisions with Susan. Meeting Susan at a predetermined location, the 2 lovers embark on a nighttime journey, their car laden with belongings symbolizing the fresh start they seek. Carl, emotionally drained and physically exhausted, relinquishes the driver's seat to Susan and settles into the passenger side, attempting to rest. As the car glides through the darkened roads, Carl drifts into a restless sleep, plagued by unsettling dreams that foreshadow impending doom. Suddenly, Carl is jolted awake by a vivid nightmare, his scream startling Susan and causing her to lose control of the vehicle. The car veers off the road, crashes through a barrier, and plunges down a ravine, ultimately exploding into flames. Carl, thrown from the wreckage, regains consciousness amidst the chaos. Disoriented and injured, he searches for Susan, but is unable to find her. Determined to seek help, Carl stumbles onto a nearby road, attempting to flag down passing motorists. To his bewilderment, each driver reacts with terror at the sight of him, speeding away without offering assistance.
Crazy fool! Do you want to get yourself killed?
Determined to find solace, Carl decides to return home. When he knocks on the door, his wife answers but screams in horror upon seeing him, slamming the door shut. Frantic and with no other place to go, Carl seeks out Susan, hoping for some clarity. When she opens the door, her hair is longer. As if time has passed, she's also blind. Upon hearing his voice, she is overcome with shock and disbelief, explaining that Carl died in a car accident 2 years ago. She recounts how she lost her sight in the crash and has mourned him ever since. Carl, unable to comprehend the situation, catches a glimpse of himself in a reflective surface and is horrified to see a decayed, skeletal figure staring back. Overwhelmed by the realization that he is no longer among the living, he lets out a blood-curdling scream.
Blinded.
And Carl was killed. 2 years ago.
Suddenly, he awakens in the passenger seat of the car, with Susan driving beside him. Relieved to find it was all a nightmare, he begins to relax. However, the sense of dread returns as the car crashes in the exact manner as in his dream, suggesting that the horrific events are destined to repeat. This segment delves into themes of guilt, consequences, and the inescapability of fate. Carl's attempt to escape his responsibilities and seek happiness at the expense of others leads him into a nightmarish cycle. The story serves as a cautionary tale, illustrating that one's actions inevitably catch up with them, often in the most unexpected and terrifying ways. Reflection of Death is based on a story from Tales from the Crypt, number 23. In the original comic, the story employs a second-person narrative, immersing the reader directly into the protagonist's experience. This adaptation maintains the core twist of the original comic while adding depth to the character's backstory, enhancing the narrative's emotional impact. Our third story is titled Poetic Justice. The story opens on Arthur Edward Grimsdyke, a kind-hearted and elderly widower who resides in a modest home filled with the joyful chaos of his many dogs and the laughter of neighborhood children. A retired garbage collector, Grimsdyke finds solace in repairing discarded toys and sharing them with the local youths, becoming a beloved figure in the community. His home, though cluttered, exudes warmth and hospitality, reflecting the gentle nature of its owner. Grimsdyke's days are filled with simple pleasures, tending to his garden, caring for his pets, and engaging in spirited conversations with the children who visit him. Despite his humble lifestyle, he maintains a dignified presence, frequently sporting fingerless gloves and a well-worn coat, embodying the image of a man content with his lot in life. However, not everyone shares the community's affection for Grimsdyke. Across the street live Edward and James Elliot, a father and son duo whose disdain for their neighbors stems from their obsession with social status and property values. Edward, a traditionalist with a rigid sense of propriety, and James, an ambitious and unscrupulous young man, view Grimsdyke's presence as a blight on their otherwise pristine neighborhood. They perceive his cluttered yard, his interactions with children, and his collection of animals as affronts to their sensibilities. Determined to rid themselves of what they consider an eyesore, the Elliots embark on a calculated campaign to drive Grimsdyke away. Their first tactic involves sabotaging Grimsdyke's reputation. James clandestinely destroys a neighbor's rose garden and orchestrates a scenario where Grimsdyke's dogs are blamed for the damage. The authorities, responding to the complaints, confiscate the animals, leaving Grimsdyke heartbroken. Undeterred, the Elliots escalate their efforts by leveraging their influence to have Grimsdyke dismissed from his part-time job, ensuring he loses his pension benefits. This financial blow further isolates the elderly man, stripping him of both companionship and livelihood. As Grimsdyke's world crumbles, he seeks comfort in spiritualism, attempting to contact his deceased wife through a Ouija board. The board ominously spells out danger, a forewarning that goes unheeded. The final blow comes on Valentine's Day when James, under the guise of various neighbors, sends Grimsdyke a series of cruel and anonymous cards filled with hateful messages. The barrage of vitriol overwhelms Grimsdyke, plunging him into despair. Unable to cope with the relentless persecution, he decides to opt out. He's discovered days later, a tragic end to a life marked by kindness and generosity. Exactly 1 year later, on Valentine's Day, James Elliot is working late in his study when he hears a disturbance. Investigating the noise, he is confronted by the reanimated corpse of Grimsdyke, risen from the grave to exact vengeance. The next morning, Edward discovers a gruesome scene, with a blood-soaked Valentine beside his son. The card reads, "You were mean and cruel right from the start. Now you really have no," with the missing word gruesomely implied by the absence of James's heart. However, it doesn't stay absent for long. Poetic Justice is based on a story from Tales from the Crypt, issue number 35. The original comic was all about dark revenge and ironic twists, the kind of poetic justice that hits you right in the feels. This is a great example of how Tales from the Crypt took those tight, punchy horror comic stories and turned them into full cinematic tales, keeping that vintage, spooky vibe, but making it fresh and exciting for new viewers. If you love twisted justice served cold, Poetic Justice nails it every time. The second to last segment is titled simply, Wish You Were Here. Our story starts with a man named Ralph Jason, a once successful businessman who finds himself on the brink of financial ruin. His lavish lifestyle, built on ruthless business practices and risky investments, has crumbled, leaving him facing bankruptcy. His wife, Enid, is equally distressed by their predicament, as they contemplate selling their cherished possessions to settle their debts. Among their collection is an ornate Chinese figurine, acquired during Ralph's travels in the Far East. Enid recalls the legendary tale associated with the statue, that it grants 3 wishes to its owner. Despite Ralph's skepticism and warnings about tales like the monkey's paw, Enid, driven by desperation, wishes for a substantial sum of money. Shortly after, Ralph receives a call from his lawyer, Charles Gregory, who informs him of a potential financial opportunity. Excited by the chance, Ralph sets off in his car. As he is driving, he is pursued by a mysterious motorcyclist with a skull-like face, an embodiment of death itself. Terrified, Ralph suffers a fatal heart attack, causing his car to crash. Back home, Enid is informed of his death and learns that she is the beneficiary of a substantial life insurance policy, effectively fulfilling her wish for wealth. Grief-stricken yet hopeful, Enid uses her second wish to bring Ralph back to life, exactly as he was before the accident. Soon after, undertakers arrive at her home with Ralph's body in a coffin. Charles explains that Ralph died of a heart attack, not from the crash itself. Therefore, even though he is restored to the moment before the accident, he remains dead. Undeterred, Enid makes her final wish, for Ralph to be alive and to never die again. This time, Ralph wakens, but is in excruciating pain. Having been embalmed, his body is filled with preserving fluids, causing unimaginable agony. Enid, horrified by his suffering, attempts to end his pain by stabbing him with a sword. However, due to her wish for him to live forever, he cannot die, and his torment continues unabated. Charles, witnessing the tragic consequences of Enid's wishes, is left speechless. Enid, realizing the irreversible damage caused by her actions, is consumed by despair. The story concludes with Ralph trapped in eternal agony, a grim testament to the perils of tampering with fate.
You wished him alive forever. You can't kill him. Every piece of him is alive still. Alive and suffering. But
This segment is based on a story from The Haunt of Fear, issue number 22. Despite the brevity of the comic, the movie keeps the basic setup and structure, but adds more emotional weight and visual storytelling. In the comic, events occur swiftly in 6 to 8 pages, whereas the movie delves deeper into the characters, particularly Enid, and her progressive desperation with each wish. In the comic, the final twist is more straightforward and abrupt, characteristic of EC Comics. However, the movie lengthens the horror, especially in the ending, where Enid wishes for her husband to be alive forever. Consequently, she gets a ghastly, horrifying result when he's alive but cannot die, even when being embalmed, and cut into pieces. This will literally be an eternal suffering. The final segment of the movie is titled Blind Alleys. Major William Rogers, a recently retired military officer, assumes the position of director at Elmridge, an institution for the blind. Alongside him is his faithful companion, Shane, a German shepherd. Rogers brings with him a strict, authoritative leadership style. From the outset, he imposes strict austerity measures, citing budgetary constraints. He drastically reduces heating access, lowers the quality and quantity of food provided, and restricts medical care for the residents. In contrast, Rogers indulges in luxurious comforts, enjoying gourmet meals in a well-heated private suite. Even his dog, Shane, receives preferential care, starkly contrasting the treatment of the residents. George Carter, a long-term resident and respected figure within the blind community, becomes increasingly concerned about the worsening conditions. He approaches Rogers multiple times, imploring for improved treatment and resources. Yet, he is met with indifference and disdain. Rogers ignores the grievances, prioritizing discipline and order over empathy. Tensions rise when one resident succumbs to the dire conditions, lacking proper heating and medical care. This tragedy compels Carter and the remaining inhabitants to take action.
Which one is Greenwood? The man is dead.
Very well.
The blind residents orchestrate a meticulous operation, seizing control of the institution. They overpower Rogers and his staff, confining them in separate rooms in the basement. Shane is held captive without food while Rogers is isolated, deprived of warmth and nourishment. Over several days, Rogers endures the same hardships he had inflicted on the residents. Unaware of the ongoing construction, he hears only the sounds of progress. As he's released, he is led into a narrow corridor lined with razor blades and sharp objects jutting from the walls, guided by the very people he had previously mistreated. At the conclusion of this treacherous path, a door opens to reveal a feral and ravenous Shane. As Rogers endeavors to navigate the corridor, the lights abruptly go out, plunging him into darkness. Panicked, he relies on his senses to escape. However, amid the ensuing pandemonium, Shane pounces, and Rogers faces a gruesome fate. This segment is based on a tale from Tales from the Crypt, issue number 46. In the original comic, the story revolves around Gunnar Grunwald, a sinister director of a home for the blind. He derives pleasure from tormenting the residents, cutting their food supplies, and engaging in cruel pranks. Gradually, the blind inhabitants rise against him. They construct a razor blade-lined maze and force him to navigate it, while his hungry dog awaits at the end. In this version of Tales from the Crypt, Sir Ralph Richardson played the Crypt Keeper. Through the wraparound story, it's revealed that the 5 people listening to the Keeper's tales are none other than the wretched and cruel people who suffered unusual deaths due to their less than moral choices. But they will now also experience eternal damnation.
Who's next? Perhaps you?
So, there you have it. I finally watched the 1972 version of Tales from the Crypt, and honestly, I think it was a lot better than what I thought it was going to be. Usually when you watch these movies from the 70s, there's a lot of audio issues. I mean, in here, it kind of has a little bit of an 70s audio. But it's really entertaining, and I'm actually really confused now as to why the 7th season of Tales from the Crypt that took place in the UK was horrible, but the movie, which was also shot in the UK, was pretty damn good. I don't get that, but anyway, I just want to say again, thank you all for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.